Hey everyone, welcome in Betsperts Golf for the start of the 2026 season. Ryan Noonan joined here as always by our guy Ron Klos, PGA Splits 101. Excited to be back on a bye week last week, Ron. Maybe the end of Hawaii here, but can't wait to get started. Excited to be back. What's going on with you, brother?
Yeah, great to be back. It's been a longer off season than pretty much ever in the PGA Tour. And I know, just speaking personally, both of us being upper Midwest guys, it's bad enough when you can't go out and play golf, but then when you look and you're just waiting for Kapalua and those scenes on your TV, and it got taken away from us this year. And so, yeah, I really hope this is not the last time to Hawaii, because I think a lot of us, who love golf, it's just part of our lives, watching Hawaii golf in January. So I'm excited to get back this year. I think Sony is a great, it's not going to be an easy course this week. It depending on looking at the weather forecast, there's some potential trade winds coming in. So I think it'll be a good opening test, and we got a pretty good field. So excited to get in here and talk about it.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of changes coming to the PGA Tour schedule. I don't think you make a move like the Brian rollout move and kind of keep the status quo. It's been, not specific on what's coming, but pretty specific on things are going to be changing. Schedule seems to be a big one. A lot of discussion, and I wouldn't say rumors per se, but there definitely could be situations where we don't have Hawaii to necessarily start the season. We'll see what happens there. But for now, it's on the schedule. We got it. Waialae, I think it's a great place to start. Let's start with Betsperts Golf before we get into anything on the Sony side. Real busy off season. It'll be a busy spring, and I guess end of the winter here as things continue to roll out. Tell us a little bit about what's going on the site, what is coming, and what people have to look forward to as we kind of do this post Fantasy National merger, and all that people can expect.
Yeah, so we've been busy at work. There's no off season of rest here, so kind of tried our best to use this time wisely. And obviously, my opinion, a lot of people's opinions, rabbit hole is the best out there as far as just how in depth that you can get with your research. So yeah, we've added. I won't list everything here. I think we'll kind of throughout the week and into next week we'll highlight a lot of these things. We'll tweet it out and stuff. But a lot of different new metrics. For example, off the tee. We have left and right tendency now. So, for example, this week at Sony, usually a left miss is much worse. There's a couple lakes on the left-hand side of the fairway. And so, if you wanted to get really into the details of, who tends to miss more left and right, that's now on off the tee view. We have added launch angle, spin rate to the kind of the swing metrics section. And then we have some new putting metrics, just more ranges. Like, for example, we have inside 10 feet, outside 10 feet. So we got many more things on the horizon coming up with that, including scoring chances. And what we're going to do is basically take it inside 5 feet, inside 10 feet, inside 15 feet. So you kind of get the full range of, who's hitting it really close and things like that. And then I think one of my favorite things is around the green. We now have the shot types, like the actual percentage from each, whether it's from the rough, from the short grass, from bunkers. So you can actually look per course and see, and that's all on the, the course pages and the course metric section. You can actually see kind of, the distribution of, what courses have more shots from the rough, from the short grass. And then there's just a bunch of little things added, player pages. Color coding has been completely revamped. Like, it is down to the percentage based on PGA Tour averages. And then, just on the filter menu, we have now you can view all 4 majors. So if you just want to look at, just the Masters, just PGA Championship. And I'm sure as we go through today, you'll see we have a comp course filter now on the kind of on the main view here. So, for example, this week you click on that button and it's going to show you, all the comp courses that go with Waialae. And so there's a lot more stuff coming up, including, DP World Tour data. I know that's been a thing that we've wanted to add for a while here. And so we are working as fast as we can to add all these things.
Yeah, not a small feat, not a small lift tech wise to bring some of the fantasy national stuff over and the DP World Tour data. So making any excuses, just coming. It takes a long time. They don't have all the stats. They don't have all the data. It's different. We got to get these databases to talk to each other. A lot of moving parts, but we're going to have it. We're really excited about it. I think it's going to continue to be a great value add. I think especially as we have data, kind of matures here as we get these guys that are coming over from the DP World Tour. Like, right, we have 7 of the 10 DP World Tour grads or PGA Tour card earners in the field this week. It's going to be able to tell just a better, more holistic data story when we can tie in all the DP World Tour data. And even with some of like the big dogs that bounce back and forth, when you want to get, Rory or Tommy's Dubai data and all that stuff, tied in, to tell a better story. I think I'm just excited to have that. So yeah, I love the comp course thing. It makes it so easy because I think, it matters every week. It's always listed in your work. I try to list what I think are the best as well. But this is, one button click is what we're trying to do, is make this as easy as possible. And that kind of goes back to even the layout on the site. You can see, instead of having to go into the rabbit hole, go into the expert drop downs, find the model that you want to take a look at, you can go right here on the homepage. It's going to direct you right into the model that you want. So you want my model, it's right here. You click view. It's going to take you right to that page. We got Mayo. We'll have Ron's model. We got Andy's model here. And then also, if it's just a little intimidating, golf data, golf modeling, all of it. We're going to have what I would call a real remedial model for you to click into as well. Just kind of high level, I think, real basic key stats that we think can get you through for the week. So just trying to continue to make this best, most easy site for you. I think if you were to have just one thing, right? One thing to do all your research in for the week. The rabbit hole obviously is what you'd want to do, but even if that's like a little intimidating, I think our course stats, these pages are absolutely insane. And you did a great job this winter blowing them out even more, because not only we have everything that we've had in the past, here's where you would get previously correlated, courses, all the whole stats, all the things that were in here before. The metrics are expanded, obviously, but we have these were added late last year, where you can kind of get a singular snap difference of how this course relates to a standard PGA Tour track, which I think is fantastic. Very easy to consume, very easy to look at. Okay, very clearly I could see how this differentiates from a standard tour track. And then you can expand that too if you want to get into all the different granular things. We have, the approach ranges. Again, that's all in here as well. But again, singular look, really clean and easy for you. The player quotes, something that we've done in the past that you brought back, which I think is really, really important to kind of hear from the players, especially a place like Waialae, for example, is where we start the season. It's such a place where course histories mattered so much. We have the old trend of, having to play basically Kapalua before. There's a, good strong line between players playing well at the Sony that have played at Kapalua. You can also make the case those are really good golfers. But anyway, that's obviously dead this year. But I think reading the player quotes, I love. You get a sense of how the players are seeing the course versus just the data. It's really impactful and not small, right? Like, here's just general course, off the tee, around the green, putting, all those things, which I think are fantastic. And then obviously the leaderboard, we can go back to look at previous years, excuse me, looking at strokes gained or just how they finished, I think is a great resource. So just a singular resource. You can get lost and spend a good hour or two getting really granular just on the course stats page. So absolutely must have, I think, for anyone who's really doing this to scale at all on the betting or DFS side. So love it.
Yeah. And if you, on that page, and I'm sure we'll go through it a little bit with the Sony Open here, but if you click on any of those quote boxes, like a new box will open up, and you'll get if you want to see it a little bigger. So any diagram on the site, you can now do that. Even the course previews. I know some of the diagrams in the preview tend to be a little smaller. So if you just click on them, it'll open up for you just like that.
Yeah, a little easier for you to trying to navigate too. If you're doing some of this on your mobile, that's a little tougher. Obviously, Rabbit Hole is not. You can use it. It's obviously going to be so much better on your desktop. We're trying to make it a little bit more user friendly if you're just trying to consume a little bit of information. So yeah, love this edition. I love how granular you can get down here now on the results on the player pages, where you can really start to do some of the filtering that you could do from like a top down level on the Rabbit Hole. You could do now on the player page too, which I think is going to be awesome. If you wanted to, say you wanted to filter out some of the DP World Tour data, you're going to eventually be able to do stuff like that. Like that's going to be, I think, awesome.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Like if you just go, like I think this is great because I used to always, when we get to a tournament like Sony, and it's a very specific type of course. It's a short course. It's a positional course. I've always wanted to be able to do this where, when I go in there and I'll click, I just want to look at short and very short courses. Yeah. And I want to see how this one player, I don't want to see everybody. I just want to see how does this one player perform on those courses. And you can now put those in here and look back chronologically. And so this tells you how has this player played these courses. And you can go as far back as 2015, but this is just a great snapshot of let me just look at short courses. You could load, multiple courses in here. You could, every filter that we have available in the normal Rabbit Hole view is available here. And so, this is just a great way to do individual player research, and nobody else has this. Cannot do this anywhere else.
I get lost when we're talking. Damn, Sky Shuffler's good. Doesn't play a lot of very short courses, but when he does, he's pretty good. But yeah, it's a great resource. Like you said, if you just want to hone in on the one guy, you don't want to spend a bunch of time, looking at it, just, hey, this is a guy I'm focused on. I want to look at him specifically and drill down into the data. You could do all that filtering just on their player page. So, and again, we'll try to make it real easy, just in the tools. You can go straight to the player database, obviously the course database, which is where we were. Once we get into later in the week, Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, when we get some of the tournament matchup stuff, the projections will be in there. You can mess around with the sims, you can mess around with the matchups, DFS optimizer, all that stuff is in here. So really excited about what we have in store for 2026. Hope you are as well. We should be having information very soon for our fantasy national brethren who haven't signed up for Betsperts Golf yet. It's part of what they have. You'll be able to access that through your fantasy national subscription very, 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 very soon. Hopefully this week. So, again, that should be just a couple of clicks. Want to make that very, very easy for you. It's why it's taking a little bit of time. So, all right. I think we captured some of that from a high level. Sony, Waialae. Smaller field than normal, Ron, which we're going to see is kind of another, I guess, bellwether change of where we are going on the tour. Smaller fields and a pretty good field because, again, a lot of players would typically start in Hawaii anyway, and some guys wanted to get that in. I think maybe a little bit stronger than we normally see. What should we know that we don't already about Waialae in this year's Sony?
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same as it's always been. This is one of those classical, courses on the tour going back, very long ways. I think it's the third oldest continuously used venue on tour, only behind, Colonial and Pebble Beach. And so, yeah, it's just this, par 70 layout, narrow corridors, fairways lined by palm trees. You have 8 total dog legs on the course. So, off the tee is something where you just, you look at those player quotes and player after player, just you have to be in the fairway. If you're in the fairway here, you can score, but that is the key. And, looking at what the, the tournament organizers put out about the course this year, the rough is the longest it's ever been. It's up to 3.5 inches. Now, I'm waiting to hear, reports on the ground to verify that. But last year it was listed at 3, and it was 3. So I think at this point we're going to have to take him that 3.5 inches. And when you're talking 3.5 inches of Bermuda, that's nothing to play around with because as we all know, Bermuda is very unpredictable as it is. Even if it was 2.5 inches. So interesting to see that how that 3.5 inches makes much of a difference or not. But this is a positional track. pretty much neutralizes, most advantages that, bombers have off the tee. So that's kind of the idea this week. Another thing that I'm going to be adding to the course pages is correlations related to strokes gained and kind of distributions, for each course. And so, when you look at this course, I think the top 10, the average distribution from gaining strokes putting is 46%. So 46% of all strokes gained in the top 10 come from putting. And so, this is a course where you can score, and it's kind of an approach, kind of putting week, in my opinion. And of course, you have to hit the fairways as well. So, for me, I think around the green, when you have 71%, greens and red grade, around the green doesn't come into play too much. That Bermuda rough can be a threat around the green, but for me, it's going to kind of be focusing on guys who can hit it close, proximity to the hole. And then, of course, looking at Bermuda putters, I think this is a week where, you go back and look at some of these past winners. Nick Taylor got really hot on the greens last year. But you've also had some guys who are not really, kind of team no putt here with, Hideki winning in 2022. Even Siwoo Kim in 23, he's very hit or miss on the green sometimes. So I think it's a week where, looking at the spike putting that we have in the rabbit hole, when we have the floor ceiling view, where you can go in and look, and you can even put Bermuda in there and see, who's gaining, 2+, 3+ strokes at the highest rates on Bermuda. That's another angle of attack that I think is really smart this week.
It is let's say a putting contest, because it's not necessarily, but when you look here, I mean, you have these positional short tracks for these guys are so good. And if you're, again, coming here annually, you're familiar with how it plays, you're familiar with the firm fairways, you're familiar with the run out. And it really comes down to, can you hold a bunch of putts? So when you look at last year's leaderboard, I mean, Steven Yeager essentially bleeding off the tee. I mean, you should be punished typically for essentially losing almost a full stroke per round off the tee. I mean, his approach game was pretty solid, but he just sank everything here. So, it's definitely a spot where we do want to lean on some of those putting numbers, some of those Bermuda splits as you highlighted there too. So, yeah, it's a spot that I've had a lot of success in. I like these shorter positional tracks. I like these places where we can get some sticky course history. I mean, I'll be honest, anyone who's watched us do this for a few years, probably going to have no surprises with my first 2 clicks. Really feels like a really easy way to start the season. We'll figure it out. But they continue to threaten the board every time they come here, and there's no chance I can sit out while they're going to do their thing here at Waialae. So it's an interesting.
Let me guess. Russell Henley, and who am I missing? Who's the other one?
You don't have to scan too far. Played a lot of meaningless golf. Yes, Keegan? Played a lot of meaningless golf this fall, and has played pretty well. Anytime he gets a chance, and with TGL or golf channel games or skins games. But yeah, I double clicked last year, had a weekend sweat, and we'll probably ring the bell again here to start 2026. So yeah. I like this event. I like this field, and there's some value here too. Let's click into what FanDuel has for opening numbers. You can shop this around. We're gonna have odd screens here as well, probably on SharpStack, one of our other properties, but we'll have some access for subscribers here as well. Russ short on FanDuel at 11 to start. Ben Griffin at 16, Decky at 20, Colin at 20. It's a pretty big number for Colin. Seeing if he can get off the schneid this year after played some pretty good golf last year, especially early. Definitely different than I think the narrative around how he played. Keegan at 20, Spawn at 20. So just a lot of, Bobby Mack there too. So probably see that start to move a little bit as, favorites emerge. Excuse me. Matt McNeely, Siwoo, you said defending, we're not defending, but 2023 champ. Harry Hall, Nick Taylor's your defending champ. Corey Connors, all short of 30. It's a lot of guys short of 30. They're all interesting. You make the case for all of them for sure. You kind of expand. We got Jordan Spieth back in. obviously returning from injury. See how he's doing. Kitayama, Scott, Johnny Kiefer, pretty short here on a Monday morning, but a lot of love for, I'm guilty of this too. I love the young guns. Kiefer, pretty short. Aaron Rye, Mitchell, Goddard, Denny, Harmon, Knapp, Rico. I mean, a lot of guys trying to stop at 50, but there's a lot of guys. So we'll see how this kind of shakes out on a Monday morning as people start to bet here. So, again, as always, shop around when you're looking to bet golf outrights because, 5 points or whatever makes a pretty big difference. So, like I said, pretty good field and smaller than normal too. So that impacts things here as well. All right.
Yeah, you got a lot of guys who, I think would have played the Century who won last year, who are here. A lot of guys who probably, they realize the fields are smaller and, they just want to take advantage when they can. And so, there's some really interesting names here. Obviously, Waialae has it's the fifth most predictive course on tour. So you kind of get the same guys over and over. And I'll be, it's already in the preview, the course history here, but I'll be tweeting that out here soon. But yeah, you got some interesting names further down the board. Like I think of Brian Harmon sitting there right around, 55. I'm looking at, and Eric Cole's a guy who I think, he had his struggles last year. He went through a kind of a big slump period, but he's a guy who has had good finishes here. If you read the quote section, he loves this course. It reminds him of kind of back home in Florida, Bermuda. It's short. He's not going to get killed off the tee because he can kind of club down here. So he's a name I really like here at a place like this. And you got Danny sitting there at 55 too. So there's some interesting names here kind of in the middle tier that I think can threaten this week, especially, if they can get hot on the greens. So that's where I'm going to kind of start my look here. But I think for me up top, I think Ben Griffin is always, he's proven he can win at different places. He went down to Mexico and won. And so I think that versatility and, I think he's only going to get better, from what I've seen of him. So, he's kind of my first guy I'm first looking at the top of the board here.
Yeah, hard to poke holes in Ben Griffin. I don't think what we saw last year from, let's say I tossed JJ Spawn in that mix too. I don't think that was necessarily smoke and mirrors. I think there's some real improvements there. Maybe Ben Griffin in particular even more. Right? I think like the ball speed gains are going to be pretty sticky for him. I think having, you kind of just build some of that muscle memory. You kind of build a little, you contend, you play in some big tournaments, you taste some of that smoke against, Scotty and Memorial. Like that's a real thing, right? You gain that experience, right? He didn't win, you chase him down, but Scotty went out and won that tournament. It wasn't that Ben Griffin lost that. And I think there's a lot to be gained for that. I think we saw it in even in the swing season with like a young guy like Michael Brennan, who just whooped up on guys for a solid 5 weeks in the PGA of America's tour, won a bunch, and then got his chance in Utah. And like winning's a thing. Like it's really hard to do. And I think you gain some of that muscle memory and what to do on Sunday when it's tight, even if it's against worse competition. At least the moment doesn't overwhelm you. Like you get a lot of these guys that have been kicking around on the tour for a while that really haven't threatened the top of the leaderboard. All of a sudden they're aware that they're at the top of the leaderboard. It's a little bit new. So I think Ben Griffin and Spawn definitely learn from that, right? I don't think that Spawn's players, I think that helped him when he showed up at the U.S. Open on Sunday and that got late and tight, right? I think having to deal with those things matter quite a bit. So course history is on the tournament cheat sheet. You can singular look if you wanted to look at just kind of rolling form. Again, it won't look like this as we get into the season. When guys start to play a little bit more, you just kind of want short bursts of how they're performing on some of the more important metrics. That's here for you as well. And again, you can scroll all the way over and get the course history. And again, this is, as Ron pointed out, a spot that you want to look at that maybe a little bit more than normal here. So I like to sort this by salary when we get the DraftKings DFS salaries in there. It's a little bit easier to kind of look at some of the best guys. And you can see, I make the case for Russell Henley, why I would make the case for him here. Again, this year's he's shows up here and contends, it fits his game. And this is again another resource we didn't highlight, but if you've been with us before. It's a nice, easy way. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. Again, you can get granular and find all this through the rabbit hole. We want to make it kind of singular clicking for you too. All right. Should we look at anything else in the rabbit hole you want to highlight here for the viewers or listeners? And again, if you're a listener, we appreciate it. Betsperts Golf and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can obviously find us on our YouTube channel as well. It's a little bit more YouTube friendly on a Monday morning. We do a little bit more screen sharing. I'd say our Tuesday betting show does as well. So probably a better YouTube hang, or on Twitter, obviously, as well.
Yeah, I think I always go back to the course pages, and we have multiple charts in there. That's kind of where I think you can do it multiple ways. We have the chart with just the data, and then I have the visuals where you can kind of compare it. Both kind of do the same thing. I like the visuals better just because you can see, green means it's easier than tour average, red means it's harder, and you can see there's a lot of green there for Waialae. Especially, on approach. And so, yeah, I think, just from a rabbit hole perspective, if we're looking at, short courses, I think that's something I'm looking at this week. A lot of people think it is a less than driver course. It's actually kind of an average mix in between. And so that's one of the misconceptions. Another misconception people have about this course is that the greens are small. Now they used to be, actually, they're average. They're around 6,700 square feet. And then when they renovated a few years back, they're actually up to 7,100. So they're the 8th largest greens on tour. So that's another reason for why the greens and reg is so high. They are easy to hit. And so, for me, I'm going to be looking at, proximity. Another thing I'll tease coming up here, again, I'm hoping this is sooner than later, but, strokes gained per shot from approach. I think that's another thing that, you can use proximity, that works, but, I think approach, getting those exact strokes gain numbers is always going to be better. And so, but in the rabbit hole this week, I'm really focusing. If you go down a little bit to the approach distribution chart, those two ranges, there's an enormous amount of shots here from 150 to 200, and the relative difference, people often ask me about that. So basically, instead of taking it 0 to 100%, every PGA Tour, there's a range. And so, for example, the range from 150 yards might be maybe 12% to 40%. And so it only takes that 28% difference when it calculates for relative difference. And so basically what that does is it kind of exaggerates in an accurate way, the difference between ranges. And so 34.7% more shots are coming from that 150 to 175 range. And if you go down, you can see 225 plus, you are 5.9% total if you look at the average. So you're just way down on those longer iron shots here. And so 150 to 200, what are we talking? Maybe 7 irons through 9 irons. Those are kind of what guys are going to be hitting into greens here. So I think these are all little things you can take and then, look in the rabbit hole and check those proximity numbers, from those buckets. So that's kind of my process and how I handle these different charts in here.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. I like the relative. I think it's the important way to actually tell the story of what you're trying to get from this data, right? We can all do this basic subtraction in our head. But this is, I think, really a more important way. And really, when you look overall, just the distribution of shots under 200 yards, at roughly 83% is significantly higher than a standard PGA Tour event, right? So scoring wedges, that's why, the scoring can really be impactful here, why putting is going to matter, because a lot of these guys are going to have, I guess you would say, scoring clubs, right? So whether it's a wedge or, like you said, to an 8 iron, these are pin hunting opportunities for these guys. So that's why you can get into the spots where, if the winds aren't really kicking up, we can get into the low 20 scoring wise. Again, you highlighted in the preview, we're not on the coast specifically for a lot of the holes, right? We are protected a little bit where the winds if the winds are sustained at 20, 25 plus, it's going to impact everything everywhere a little bit, but we're not specifically wide open as we are on some coastal tracks.
But if you talk to golfers, the flip side of that, though, is when you have all these trees lining the fairways, the winds tend to swirl. So I've read a lot of golfers actually say they prefer it to be wide open because they know for sure the
Makes
wind
sense.
direction. And then you get in these trees and it makes it even trickier. So that's just another thing that, to keep in mind. And, guys who have played here a lot, I think that's where the course history, the predictiveness comes in as well, because they're used to these conditions. Like, and Nick Taylor has played here so many times. And I think he's talked about in different interviews how he's just used to, he knows what the winds are going to do here when they swirl. He has his lines already for every hole. And he like, it's like riding a bike for him to come here and play.
Yeah. I mean, you can hear sort by last year's winner. It's just like Adam Schenk stands out as a kind of an anomaly, right? He'd come here a bunch though, right? He hadn't had any success, but again, over time, that familiarity, bred some success, but it's not, you see a bunch of guys that have been here before that have previously had success and played well. That's not a surprise. So, past experience here and then past success here, I think are things that you'd want to start with. Like there's some players that I like Christopher Rattan, one of the guy coming over from the DP World Tour. I think this course suits his game a ton, but I'm really worried to make that click because he never played here before. And I think there's just a lot of tells that like, that's a huge edge, having played and understand how this course sets up and where your misses are, and knowing that like, hey, yeah, I'm going to lay up here and play myself to this angle. And then you're bouncing through the fairway and all of a sudden you're in 3.5 inch unpredictable Bermuda rough. And that's very different, where the guys that have come here and even like an Adam Schenk haven't had a lot of success. They know where to miss. They know where to leave themselves. So I'm definitely leaning on not just previous walleye success, but just previous walleye experience. I think is going to matter a ton this week. So not surprising to see a bunch of green laid out for guys that have played here a bunch, right? Like, even a Webb Simpson who isn't competing in most tracks nowadays can come here last year in T16 because he knows what's going on. He knows what he's doing. So, all right. We got anything else with people? I think that's good.
Yeah, look, we could talk for 2-3 hours about different angles you could attack this, this course through the data. But yeah, I know you're going to put some videos out. I'm going to start putting the goal is to put some daily videos out from both of us, just to kind of show maybe how we research different parts of the rabbit hole. I know for some of mine, I'm just going to go through and maybe highlight some pages that, maybe a lot of people just haven't gotten to yet. I think obviously looking at the course preview stuff, the stuff on the course pages, pretty much every filter that's important this week is in there. And so, yeah, just encourage people to kind of play around. And I know we do have a lot of new people this year, a lot of people joining from Fantasy National. So yeah, please reach out with any questions. You can DM me anytime. I'll get back to you really quick. So yeah, just reach out and we'll help you try to understand. And we have a whole tutorial section as well. I think there's 6 to 8 videos on there that go into detail. So if you want more details on every single part of the site, use that as a resource as well.
Yeah, great call out. And subscribers should use Discord feature. A great way to reach us specifically. Tag any of us. I know Ron and I are in there a ton. The members channels are where we typically are, but if you're not, you're just in the free section of the Discord too. Again, tag us. We'll help anyone with anything. We just want to make it the best resource. That's where we often play, push out our official plays, the things that we're doing, pre-tournament. Ron does his round by round stuff. And again, and the live leaderboard, we didn't even talk about the live leaderboard, Ron, because it's a live leaderboard. It's really hard for us to highlight the live leaderboard until we get live golf. But if you have bemoaned about having to follow golf through an assortment of apps, PGA Tour app or other things in the past, man, you're going to be, I think, thrilled. I cannot wait to have the live leaderboard when golf is on, right? You can't watch it or in a complement to watching golf. If you're trying to bet live, you're trying to go round by rounds, the live leaderboard is going to have, was it 41 metrics, I think is what we have, Ron? Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically what I try to do is we have a little bit of limited space at first. We're going to even make it bigger, hopefully. But I think 41 is way more than any other sites have. So, strokes gained, everything on there, all the off the tee important things, obviously distance, accuracy, par 3 scoring, par 4, all those things. We even got some swing metrics on there. So I think the ball speed one is just interesting to look at. Even apex height, if it's a windy week, you can kind of see what guys are keeping it low. Maybe someone who's changing their swing, someone who's like this week, early in the season, guys coming out of a break, did they drop in ball speed at all? You almost will be able to tell, who's been getting after it in the off season. So just a lot of things that you'll be able to keep up with on a live basis. And we'll get all the kinks out this week, and hopefully it'll be perfectly, ready to go by next week.
Yeah, can't wait. So look for that. Again, happy to handle any questions anyone has at Betsperts Golf. Like you said, our Twitter handles are here on the page. And again, for subscribers, Discord's the best way. Just make sure you tag us, right? Like we go in there often, but not reading every message. So if you want something specific, just put my name in front of it, or Ron as well. So appreciate everyone hanging out. Hit that subscribe. So the show, Andy and I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern for our betting preview. We'll get a little bit more granular in the rabbit hole, share our models, talk about the bets that we've made, our pre-tournament outright selections. I know Andy's trying to put together some DP World Tour stuff and trying to get ahead of that. So when those tournaments start populating in the rabbit hole, we're ready to give you guys all that data as well. So exciting times. Appreciate everyone hanging with us. You guys are the best. Come back again tomorrow for Andy and I. Thanks, everybody.